Hi guys, and welcome to this video. Yuri is here. Today my subject is quite different from the typical videos that I do. Instead of writing JavaScript for browsers or JavaScript for Node.js, I'm gonna write some JavaScript for Photoshop. So Photoshop turned out to be quite interesting environment to automate, to write scripts for, and quite useful too. But I wouldn't say it's the most pleasant environment to work with, because you don't have all those development tools that you got used to in the browsers, and besides, JavaScript support is not great in Photoshop. However, you can still accomplish so much more with the help of the scripts than doing things manually. So let me give you a little bit of a summary. Why exactly I needed to start writing scripts for Photoshop? So as you might know, I'm doing online education. So I'm writing and I'm recording the courses for online educations. Those are quite small clips, like 3, 4, 5 minutes, and each of them will have the intro, the name of the lesson, the list of items that we will learn, and as well as an outro, the key outtakes, what we learned in this video. So you can imagine for a big course of 100 videos, you will have 300 JPEG images somewhere in the folder that are intro, outro, and the summary, right? Now let's say that you decided to change the branding, right? You decided to change the font colors or the backgrounds of your images or add logo on each image. Obviously, doing that by hand is a terrible idea. And since I'm a programmer, I'm always trying to think, will it take me less time to automate these things? And even if it will take me more time to automate these things, sometimes I will do that. So that was my reason. I was trying to build my batch generator of intros and outros for my educational lessons. And I wrote that script in a little bit more than one evening. So let's jump in and have a look at the code, and I'll show you how to write your own script to do something similar in Photoshop. Let's go. Before we start writing the new script, I'll show you how the existing script works. So I usually start with this little Photoshop template, Photoshop document that I created. This is the bumpers for my Git Bootcamp course, and I have three groups of layers. One is for title, this is the lesson title, so I would put the name here. Second one is the to-do, what we will do in lessons. The third one is, it's like to-do, but it's called summary. It's what we learned in the lesson. So how would I usually go? If I need to create a new lesson to the course, I'll go and edit the text somewhere here. So what we will do, learn how to script Photoshop. Then I will go and save this file for web, and I'll have a nice JPEG somewhere that is ready to be inserted in the video. But this process obviously is too tedious for a big amount of the lessons, so let's see how we can optimize that. So what I came up with is this little solution. I have the lessons JSON file, and this is the description JSON documents for each and every lesson that I have. And the structure of JSON objects are quite simple. I've got the lesson ID. This will be the file name of the for the output. I've got the title. I've got the list of to-dos, and I've got summary. So this lesson doesn't have summary, and this lesson has summary. So what my script will do, it will go through this array of JSON objects, and for each object, it will generate 2 or 3 files. One is title, one is to-do, and summary. Sometimes it exists, sometimes it doesn't exist. So it will generate summary for those places where summary has at least one item. So let's see how that works in practice. So if I go File, Scripts, and browse to the script that I created. Here's my script, sample.jsx. Not a great name, I have to rename it, I think. And so now Photoshop will blink for a couple of seconds. It will think really hard about what it needs to do. I think it's ready because it stopped blinking. Didn't take long, and somewhere in my Git video course I should have generated folder. Here's my folder. I have generated these JPEG files, right? So this come from my JSON file. I have not created any of those manually. So if I have 100 lessons, I will generate 300 files, and it will be sweet then to insert them to videos instead of typing all the to-dos, all the summaries manually. Besides, if I want, let's say, I just at some point I decided this background is not cool at all. I don't like it anymore. I can delete those files, and I can remove the background pattern, and I can regenerate each and every file with a similar approach. Script, browse, open the script. Actually, I think there is a better way to open the scripts. Haven't figured out yet, but there must be some sort of quick combination how to trigger the script. And this time I will generate the images without the background. So just that quickly. Imagine how much time will it take for you to go through each and every course and to delete the background and to save this file for web. So now that we see how this script works, it's time to recreate something similar ourselves. And for the sake of the educational video, I'll keep it a little bit simpler. We'll just have one title and one to-do with a minimum amount of text. So let's start our own new project. Before we start writing our code, I want to show you how to find the official documentation, the official reference for Photoshop scripting. It is quite easily Googleable. I don't want to give you the exact link because it's quite long. I'll just put it into the description for the video. But if you Google for Photoshop scripting reference, I think the first link gonna be the official Photoshop page with a bunch of guides. So this is divided by the versions. I will be using CC 2014, a little bit outdated version of Photoshop. So if you're using the most recent one, you'll take the guide from here, and each section will have several guides, right? So I'm using JavaScript as my language of choice, so I will be using this guide. There's also AppleScript and VBScript and general scripting guide. So if you open this guide, you'll see it is pretty much the reference on all the functions and objects and the variables that Photoshop has, and what you need to do to achieve some results. It has some examples. It's not extensive by any means, but it is a very good starting point if you need to do something like save. You can just typing in the search save, and eventually you will find some function that looks like save as, and then you can look up the documentation on that function, what it accepts and what are the options that you can pass to the save function. And in the similar manner, you can start just looking by the keywords in that documentation. If you don't find what you're looking for, there is of course Stack Overflow and Google that will hopefully lead you to the right answers. So now that we know where to get the scripting reference, it's time to start writing actual code. So let's do that. I started from the blank document. I created it to match the size of the video, which is 1080 by 1920. And straight away, I'll start from creating two groups. The first group will be called title. This will be our title image. The second group, I'll call it to-do. Okay, awesome. Now in the title, I will add some text. Let's make it boring black color, and here we'll say lesson title. Obviously you can make this style different and select some fancy fonts and make it beautiful, not just black and white, but for the sake of scripting it will do. And straight away I will rename this layer and we'll call it all lowercase letters lesson-title. Why I'm doing that? Because I will need to refer this name from the script, and I want to make sure I will not need to think which letter is uppercase, which letter is lowercase, so I have this convention. I'm calling the layers with all lowercase letters with dash in between, at least the layers that I need to refer. Okay, so I'll hide this group. Now let's go to to-do group and add a couple more text layers here. This will be to-do item 1. And second item will be called to-do item 2. So I'll put them in the right order. Oops. Put them in the right order in the layers, and they already have the proper names because I gave them this little bit weird looking text, but it will be changed by the script anyway. And the final thing that I want to do, I want to make sure they are aligned. So I'll change the alignment. Here they are now left aligned, and maybe I'll move them a little bit nicer. So this looks pretty enough for me to start with. So the next thing to do is to start creating the script. Let's create the very basic script, and let's save this file somewhere first. Sample script template. And let's create the script now. So I'll go to a folder, and I'll go and save the new file in Photoshop demo script. I'll call it generate JSX. That's the extension for Photoshop scripts, JSX, not just JS. Actually, just JS will also work. So now let's do a hello world. I'll write alert. Hello world. At least we have alerts in Photoshop. Let's save it. And now let's open the script from Photoshop and go to File, Scripts. Now I select Browse, and I go and select Photoshop demo script and generate JSX. That's our script that we created. Yes, we have Hello World displayed on our page, which means that the basic script, the very basic script that you could possibly write is working. So now it's time to think a bit about a little bit more complex features that you might want to add to your script. So now that we have our Hello World working, it's time to start writing a real script. So I'll remove this line, don't need it anymore. Now, before we rush in and start writing the script, let's think about the following. What are the things that we need to learn to do in order to accomplish the full script? Firstly, we obviously need to learn how to change the text on the layer. Secondly, we will need to learn how to save file, save JPEG or PNG. Pretty much they work the same way. Once you know how to save one format, you know about the others as well. And third, you need to learn how to read JSON. Read the file and parse JSON. Basically, there is two things here. Read the file and parse JSON. So once you know how to do these three things, you pretty much can assemble the whole working script from these little parts. You read the JSON, you go through each element in the array, and for each element, you first change the text on the text layers, and then you save JPEG. Then you go to the next item, so forth, so on, till you don't have any other items left in the array. So now let's see how to change the text, because it's one of the easiest things that you can do in Photoshop. So firstly, you need to access the text layer. In Photoshop, there is a global variable called app. That is, well, that's the application, the Photoshop itself. Then it has the field called active document. That is the document that is right now active, that is selected, that you're working with. Active document. Since we'll be working with just one document, it will be always active. So active document has the bunch of groups. It has the layer sets. Layer sets. And from layer sets, I can get the group that is the title group, this group. I need to take this group and find the layer inside of that group. Pretty much works like DOM, like document object model. If you worked with browsers before, if you're coming from browser background, should be quite easy for you. If you did not come from browser background, then, well, the idea is quite simple. You have the document on the top of the hierarchy, and then you have the groups. Then inside of the groups, you have layers. So you need to reach the layer before you can change it. So layer sets. And inside of layer sets, I will get by name. I will try to find my layer by name. So what is the name of the group is title. So title. Why I'm doing that? I could just say that I want layer sets number 0, and it will still work, but I do not like to depend on the structure of the document. I would rather depend on the names of the layers. This way, if I change the order, if I add another group on the top of the first one, my code will not break because I'm not relying on the exact order of the documents or of the groups. So this will be the title group. Okay, I've got the title group. Just to double check then that I'm good, let's alert title group name. If everything is fine, it should print title. So let's open the script. And title, awesome. So now I need to access the layer inside of that group. Well, since this group is kind of very simple, it has a very simple structure, just has one layer, I can access it directly. So title layer will be title group layers 0. Here I'm pretty much fine to rely on the order of the layer. If you plan to add more things to that group, and if you're not sure if this group will have the similar structure, you can also search layers by name. It's quite easy to do. So title layer is the text layer. And this text layer, title layer, has a text item. The text item is the object that describes the text on the screen, like its size, its text contents, its font, etc. So what I want to change, I don't want to change any style attributes. What I want to change is only the contents. And I won't put here hello world just to make sure that this script works. Okay, so if this script works, lesson title should be replaced by the text called hello world. Let's open the script again. and run it. Hello world, awesome. So our script just changed the text and the layer. You can click Command Z to return back to lesson title, and this way we know how to change the text on the text layers. I can put here a big plus. Now let's learn how to save JPEG. To do that, I'll create a separate function called save JPEG. That will work, and I'll pass here the name of the file that I want to save, because for each individual lesson I want the files to be named differently. And inside, let's write the code to save JPEG. So the first thing that I will need is, I'll probably save app active document into a separate variable called doc, just for the simpler references in the rest of the code. Next thing that I want to do, I want to create the file where to output my document, my JPEG. So I'll call it file, and I'll create a new file. Again, this is Photoshop API, not standard JavaScript. And I need to fill the path to the file. So how will I find the path to the file? I want to save relatively to the currently open document. So I'll take doc. Luckily, it has the property called path, and to that path I can append / and append name and append extension .jpeg. Okay, so now I have the file to write my layer to. Next thing to do is I need to create something that is called JPEG save options. I'll call it opts. JPEG save options. Here you will tell Photoshop how exactly to save your JPEG. Remember, when you do save for web, you had that screen where you select the quality, the format, etc. So this is pretty much the file represent these kind of options. And I'll leave everything by default. The only thing that I will change, I will say that the quality will be 10, which is quite high. It's enough for video, and I don't care to save these files for web, so high quality is pretty much okay for me. Now I can ask to save current document doc save as, and to that function I'm passing the file where to save it to. Next I'm passing the options, and the last argument true save copy. This means I'm saving the copy of the document, not the document itself. So this simple function should work. Now let's call it save JPEG, and I'll call it hello world. So if everything if everything works fine, if my code is correct, after I run the script, I should have a new file in the folder relative to the PSD. Let's see if that works. Yeah. And here's my Hello World JPEG. And Hello World JPEG displays beautiful Hello World text. And that means that I know how to save JPEG. So the second point is done. I know how to save JPEGs. So the next part of our plan is to figure out how to read JSON from file. And here comes the first ugly surprise from JavaScript and Photoshop. You do not have a JSON global object, so you cannot parse JSON string with the standard means in Photoshop. Well, that's not a big problem, it's just an unpleasant feature. So what we need to do is download JavaScript JSON parser, which is called JSON2JS. You can Google it, download JSON2JS. It will pretty much lead you straight away to the page. You can find the file there, right? Go to GitHub, find this file, and go take the raw version of the file, save it somewhere. Well, not somewhere, save it close to the place where you have your main script. And I'm saving it right here, right near the script, json2.js. Now, what we need to do, we need to load that file into our main script. Here comes the other interesting feature of Photoshop JavaScript. You use the directive, which is called include. And in that directive, you pass the name of the script that you want to include, json2.js, which looks a bit funny to me, but whatever, that's Photoshop. So now JSON will be a global object and you will be able to parse JSON objects. So just let's see if that works. Let's take out our save JPEG and let's take var object equals JSON.parse and pass here some valid JSON string a:2. So if I'm able to parse this JSON object, then I'm fine. If I'm not, then I'm screwed. But let's try it. Alert object A should print 2. So now let's open this script from Photoshop. And it prints 2. That means that my code is correct. So now let's start writing the function to load JSON and parse the file. So we'll figure out how to read the file, and we already know how to make a real JavaScript object from the JSON notation from the string. So let's create another function, call it read or get JSON or load JSON. This function will accept the relative path to the JSON relative to the script file. It's going to be probably more logical than to the Photoshop file, or we can do that for the Photoshop file. You have already an example of the code that does it. But just for the sake of the example, I'll show you how to do it relatively to the script file, where script is a new file, and we'll take another funny variable called $, but it's not jQuery. File name will give me the file, the representation of the script file. From this point on, I can have script.path. This will give me the absolute path to my current script file, and I can add the relative path to the path of the file. And let's save it somewhere. JSON file equals new file, and I'll pass this whole path to the file constructors. Now I have JSON file. Now reading the file is surprisingly easy. JSON file open, almost like Node.js, and we open it for reading, passing R here. Then we can read the string, read the whole content of the file. JSON file read, it will read everything. And finally, JSON file close. So that's everything that you need to do in order to get the text contents out of the file. The last thing is we can return the object from JSON parse. We just parse and return it straight away, and we pass the string that we just extracted from the file. Okay, awesome. So now let's see if this function works. Let's take object and load it as JSON from lessons JSON. And of course, don't forget to create that lessons JSON. Title will be how to script Photoshop. So now to make things a little bit more interesting, let's load JSON, and instead of alerting, let's replace the title on the screen with the title loaded from the JSON file. Object title. If everything works, I will see the title in my Photoshop will be replaced with whatever I have written in lessons JSON, and it will be how to script Photoshop. Let's run this file and see how it works. Amazing. So now I have read JSON file properly, and I have replaced my text with the data from JSON. So now we can put a bold plus here as well. We just learned how to load, how to read file, and how to parse JSON 2-in-1. We know how to read text and how to load it as a JavaScript object. Okay, awesome. So the final thing that we will need to do is to assemble the whole script out of these little components, and this will be a relatively easy to do task. So I will start from cleaning up this code a little bit. I don't need this line, and I'll write a function called main. Self-explanatory, the entry point, the main functionality of the script. So inside of the main function, what I need to do, I need to load my JSON, and I have added a little bit more data into our lessons JSON file. So now there is 3 objects with the descriptions of 3 lessons, and they all are wrapped inside of a JSON array. So whenever I will be loading this file, I will receive the array as the output. So let me get it, lessons. will be load JSON from lessons JSON. Okay, so this is an array, so I can now iterate through that array, I from 0, I less than lessons length. And if you now think why I'm iterating through the array with this so old school code with the for loop instead of using for each or some better way to iterate through array, well, there is a reason for that. In Photoshop JavaScript there is no for each, so I have to use the loop to do that. Lesson, single lesson will be lessons I. Now for each lesson I need to do something. I'll call this function process lesson and I'll pass the lesson. Okay, awesome. So now this function will need to update the title and the items, to do items on this lesson and save to JPEG files. So let's write this function, process lesson, and it accepts a lesson object as an input. Okay, so for lesson object, what we will need to do, firstly, title will get the value from the object, and we know how to do that already. I'll update this code a little bit. I'll take this app active document and I'll save it into a variable called doc, var doc equals this thing, just to type a little bit less code, because I will be using this doc thing all over the code, and it's just so much to read. App active document, it's quicker to save it. This is now called lesson instead of the object. And now I need to update to-do items. So the first thing, I'll find the to-do group, this group on my Photoshop file, which is to-do items, this one, right? And inside of that group, there is just 2 layers for 2 to-do items. It's going to be quite easy to iterate over those. I've got the group. Need to update the name of the group here. And I will iterate from 0 to lesson to-do length. Just to remind you, in the lessons we have the to-do array, right, with 2 strings. So I'll go through those strings, and for each string I will get the layer from to-do group, layers I. This is going to be the ith layer. And finally, just like here, I will set the contents of the text item equals lesson to-do I. So this should add the proper values to the to-do items on this layer. Okay, so now I should be ready to save these 2 pictures, one for title and the second one for to-do screen. And again, just to keep things easy, I will write another function to save each group separately. Okay, so I'll write a function, save group, and it will receive the group and the name of the file to save this group as. So how do I save the group? First thing that I will need to do, I will start from having all the groups invisible. Actually, you know what? I'll probably write this code to make sure that if I forget to turn on visibility on the file itself, I will not screw my saving routine, right? So here I will have title group visible false and to the group visible false. This way I make sure that they will not appear on the wrong image, because I won't save them one after the other. So afterwards I will just save title group as lesson ID plus title. So it will add JPEG automatically. And finally I will do the same for to-do group. Lesson ID to-do, and JPEG will be added by the function. So save group. What do I need to save group? Firstly, I need to turn on the visibility of the group. Visible is true. Then I need to save JPEG, which is super easy. I'm just passing the name of the JPEG just as I received it, right? So I'm turning on the group, I'm saving the JPEG, and now I need to remember to turn off the group. Group visible equals false. So this should prepare again, the stage for the next group to be saved. So I turn it on, save it, turn it off. And I will do this for 2 groups that I have. One more thing that I want to do, instead of saving the files into the same folder as the Photoshop file itself, I will save it into the subfolder called Gen. I have created this one already. Why do I want to do that? Well, because if you have this neat little Gen folder, then the files will not mix together with the files that I have actually created myself. Awesome. So now let's see if it works, if the script works. And I'll load it as usual. So the layers are blinking and it looks like the Photoshop finished its work. Now let's see what is inside of this Gen folder that I have just created. And here's our files, right? So if you see, these are the files that have been created. The title and to-do for the first lesson, the title and the to-do for the second lesson, finally the title and to-do for the third lesson. That's amazing. So if I want to change something now on the template, for example, I want to make a background of a different color, and maybe let's make the font, instead of black, let's make it white. This will be our rebranding phase, right? And then I will resave both. Good, so now I can reload the script. And the script will generate me again the same files. This saved me so much time. Imagine how much time I would spend just doing save for web, save for web, save for web for each individual lesson. So that's how our script works. Let me put it on the screen again. It's not too big. Everything was written within 64 lines of code, and let's do a quick recap. We have the main method that loads each individual lesson from JSON file, and for each lesson it runs process lesson, basically saving the images for this lesson. Inside of saving images, what we need to do is we regenerate the text for the title layers and for to-do layers, and then we save each individual group. We use save group for that. Finally, we have a couple of helper functions. We have load JSON, the function that loads the text from the files and uses the external JSON parser to create a JavaScript object out of that text. Finally, we have save JPEG, little function that saves the generated image as JPEG. So that was really simple, and of course, following the same ideas, you can build significantly more complex scripts. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you learned something new about scripting in Photoshop. And if there is still something that is unclear or you have more questions, please feel free to leave me a comment or send me an email and I'll be happy to help you. And if you liked my videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next videos. Bye!